Hey guys, the Joe Madden Sports Podcast here. Joined this afternoon by Danny Burke, host of the Rush Hour Chicago CityCast. Bet on Chicago. Danny, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. We're trying to fill these slow summer months, but luckily for us sports bettors, we always find some kind of angle to get involved with. So staying busy over here, and hope you're doing the same.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something at this point to bet on, whether it's baseball or looking at some futures with the baseball card. Really slim today. Hey, Danny?
Yeah, every Thursday they got these games going a little bit earlier in the day, which is fine, but it's just slim pickings every Thursday evening, it seems, for Major League Baseball. And, naturally being here in Chicago and doing the Chicago CityCast, I always want to find a betting angle for the Cubs game or the Sox game, and the Sox don't play today. And the Cubs are taking on the Reds, but they got Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs, who's the most volatile pitcher in Major League Baseball. And I always say it's either you stay away or fade away with Kyle Hendricks. And tonight, I think it's going to be more of a stay away. But I did have one game that stood out to me on this baseball slate, and it kind of seems like an obvious play, but I like that they're still getting at best even money for it. And this Mariners and A's game is the one that I'm circling out. And the last I saw scheduled to pitch for the A's was going to be Adrian Martinez, who's only started one game for Oakland at Detroit. He actually did really well, but it was back in May. He went like 4 innings, allowed 4 hits, no earned runs. And Logan Gilbert starting for the Mariners, a guy that I really like a lot. I took a Cy Young future on him earlier in the year, and it's not looking too great now, but his numbers are still pretty sound. I won't get into all the craziness with it, but the Mariners are a team that hits fairly well against righties. Oakland, they're completely struggling in that regard. And bullpen wise, we know that Oakland is very vulnerable to just surrendering a multitude of runs at any given basis. So if Oakland is able to keep it somewhat close, maybe have a slim lead, I do like the Mariners to come back in some capacity, or at least just have the established lead. And I don't want to lay minus 230 or more on the Mariners. So then I'm looking at the run line at about even money is what it's circling out to be. At Bet Rivers was the best number I saw out here. And the last weekend when they were playing Oakland, and this is kind of when every team plays Oakland, but the Mariners swept them and outscored them 19-3 in those 3-game sets.
Crazy.
So, I'm liking the Mariners here tonight. Really, again, kind of slim pickings, but this would be my top play, Mariners on the run line.
Yeah, I like it as well. We've seen the A's just struggle playing the Mariners as well, only winning 7 of the last 28. I think Seattle is in for a nice big win here at home tonight. Should be a great game. Let's hear about what you have happening on Rush Hour this week, Danny.
Yeah, so like we were saying, I mean, of course, it's getting a little bit slower this summer, but still plenty of content to go through. We got a big UFC card coming up this weekend, so I'm sure we'll be talking more about that on tomorrow's show. We were previewing the John Deere Classic with Matt Humans yesterday, and we're really just kind of trying to implement that more now on a weekly basis. Again, considering that some of these sports have slowed down. So we'll focus more on golf. We'll hit some UFC and then naturally baseball. And then now what we're really getting in depth with is the NFL, because this is the time to look at those offseason futures and see what odds you can get now and kind of get not only just a solid bet of what you think is going to happen, but it's also important to just know where all of these numbers are, even if you're not betting it, so you can be cognizant of it during the regular season. So you're like, all right, this is where the number was already established at, and this is where it's moved to. Man, this is good value. Or man, I don't think I should bet this thing, because a lot of times the adjusted futures in any sport, especially the National Football League, are tremendous to seek out some opportunities. So again, even if you're not betting it, just be aware of it. And that's what I like doing now at this point in the summer on Rush Hour and the Chicago CityCast, is looking at these win totals, these odds to win the division, and some of these awards, whether it's for coaches or players.
I love that you gave that great advice at looking forward, making sure you take note of these numbers right now. Great advice to bettors out there. Let's talk about Coach of the Year. I know you have a prediction. Who can get this? I can't wait to hear who you're looking at.
Yeah, and first of all, the big thing is make sure you're looking at all the books available to you, because in futures especially, you really see those discrepancies between some of these odds. I mean, in Coach of the Year was one prime example where a couple guys were the short shots. At other books, they were like 20-1. But basically, the segment I did on my show, I went through the list of the top guys and I crossed out the dudes who I didn't think were going to really have a chance or worth
Yep.
some value. And long story short, I narrowed it down to two people. And I had Kevin O'Connell as one of them, coach of the year at 20-1, going to the Vikings. I'm high on Minnesota this year than I
Yep.
typically would be. And it seems like we're always having this conversation like, hey, this is finally the year the Vikings can potentially win the NFC North. But no, this is truly it, because with Green Bay, you have new relationships being developed with Aaron Rodgers. Will he be able to figure it out without Devontae Adams? Probably, but
Mhm.
maybe not as seamlessly. As for the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, offensive minded, is inheriting one of the most talented offensive groups in the National Football League. Kirk Cousins is still serviceable. As much as we give him crap for, he's still a solid quarterback. And you got Justin Jefferson, who's a stud. You got Adam Thielen, who's a red zone threat, and Osborne, who's emerging as a really solid receiver. And let's not forget, you got Dalvin Cook. And hey, even if he's not staying healthy, you got Madison to back him up, who's been a really sufficient tailback. So there's a lot of pieces there and a lot of opportunity to grow from already at your point where you have been dominant offensively. So I only see the Vikings going up. Yeah, their defense is kind of an issue, but O'Connell is inheriting a really studly offensive group. So I think he's set up for success. If they win the division, I think he could win coach of the year in his first year, and 20-1 is tremendous value. And then the other one too, this one isn't necessarily, because a lot of times these awards have a little bit of narrative to it
Yep.
also. And they like to try to get it to first year coaches or coaches who completely turn teams around. And it doesn't necessarily fit under the bill, but this is more of a bet for, I don't think the odds are going to be here by the end of the year. And that's for Frank Reich to win coach of the year at 22-1 was the best number I saw. Now, again, we know the Colts have been a solid team for quite some
Yep.
time. They missed out on the postseason last year. So the rumblings were that Frank Reich is now on the hot seat. If they don't make the postseason, he may be canned. And this team is the best in their respective division. I think everybody kind of agrees the Titans may take a slight step back and the rest of the division's just whatever. But it's the Colts division to win and win it handedly. And if they can have a really good year throughout their division and then one of the best records in the NFL, I think his odds will at least be in that single digit range. And you can always sell off your tickets. They give you the cash out option, or maybe he just actually has a realistic chance to win it because he is one of the best coaches and he does have a favorable schedule and division. So with all of that riding on it and the value of 22-1, I thought it was at least worth a flyer on Frank Reich. Again, considering I think he wins the division and there's no way he's going to be around 22-1 by the time we even get to the midpoint of the season, let alone the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And we look at Matt Ryan going to the Colts and all the abilities that offense is going to have with him there. So I do like that. I think that is a good one to go with. And at 22-1, I hear you on that. Let's jump back to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Minnesota Vikings under Kirk Cousins, I know you have a win total here. I have to ask you, do you think we're going to see Kirk Cousins win those primetime games this season? I know he's won a couple, but that is the biggest question mark for Kirk Cousins. Can he keep winning primetime games?
Yeah, I mean, at some point the guy's got to be due, and why not have it be when a new regime takes over? But
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, that is certainly a cause for concern. Is not only his inability to have success in primetime games, but really to just avoid shooting themselves in the foot and digging that hole to begin the games. We've seen so many times to where
Yeah.
the Vikings are just playing from behind, whether it's home or away, and they're really making it so much harder on themselves than need be. So if they simply, and it's not simply, but if they can just do it on a more constant basis, get up to those early leads where they can play a little bit safer, a little bit more relaxed, not as pressure, and play their own game, I think they'll win a lot of these spots. And you talk about favorable schedules. I think the Vikings have one of those. I think they probably split with the Packers. You could win both games against the Lions. Heck, you could win both games against the Bears. Not saying they will, but there's a good
Yeah.
opportunity to do that because of how poor both of those teams are. And I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but basically the other games present really good opportunities for Minnesota. I think I had them in the range of 10 to 11 wins. Am I bullish on them?
Okay.
Yes. Am I a little bit too much? Maybe. But again, I'm telling you, a new coaching staff that can be competent is the key here, right? I mean, Mike Zimmer clearly wasn't getting it done, and they still have all those skill sets offensively. The defense, as long as they aren't the reason for you losing games, if they can manage enough, this team can get over 8.5 wins. I know some books had 9, but 8.5 and you're laying -130. I saw a 9 at -118. So I'll gladly lay 12 cents more to get that hook in my favor. So yeah, I'm in on the Vikings over 8.5 wins.
Oh, I like it. Great way to take that. Anything else that you're looking for? Any Super Bowl bets that you have out there already, Danny?
Yeah, right after this past Super Bowl, I think it was literally the day after, I was looking at the upcoming Super Bowl futures for this season, and the 3 teams that I bet, and the odds have shifted now, but the Chargers at 25-1. Remember, this is right after the
You are now
Rams
my
beat the
best
Bengals.
friend. You're now my best friend.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
sorry.
team Chargers, baby. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody's kind of high on them, but
Yeah.
honestly, this is the year for them to make a run. And 25-1, and then they got Khalil Mack, and a lot of things moved. They're down to like 17-1 last I saw. I also took a flyer on the Cardinals at 25-1. Not that I actually think they'll really win it, but again, more so of a value play based on where I think the number will be throughout the season and toward the end of the year. The team's kind of in shambles right now a little bit with the Kyler Murray situation, but still a lot of talent if they can figure out that whole dilemma. And then I took the Ravens at 20-1. I mean, the Browns are in a tough situation right now. The Bengals may have the Super Bowl hangover, and the Steelers with Mitch Trubisky, give me a break. So, yeah, I like the Ravens probably to win that division. And you got to remember how much adversity they were dealing with last year, right? All the injuries, yet they were still incredibly competitive. One of the best coaches in Harbaugh, great quarterback in Lamar Jackson, still a solid defense. So I thought, again, the value and the talent and actual chances it could happen were set up beautifully for the Ravens. So 20-1 was the ticket I got on them.
Okay, it's going to be a great NFL season. I can't wait for it to kick off. Danny, where can everyone find you on social media as well as watch and listen to all of your shows?
Yeah, on Twitter at DannyBurke5 is the best way to kind of get in tune with everything. For the links to my podcast, the Chicago CityCast. It's wherever you get your podcasts available, multiple episodes a week in that regard, covering a lot of things Chicago. And then Rush Hour, you get more of the national perspective. We got a couple guests on every single night. And if you're in the Chicagoland area, Marquee Sports Network, same channel the Cubbies play on. Otherwise, VSiN.com, the VSiN app, Fubo TV, Sling TV, the Xfinity app, YouTube TV. It's kind of all over the place, but I always tweeting out the link to kind of make it easier. So on Twitter is probably the best way to do so.
Okay, guys, head on over to Twitter. Make sure you give Danny a follow. You don't want to miss out on any of this fantastic content he is putting out. Danny, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the Joe Madden Sports Podcast. Can't wait to have you on again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.